Hey there, settling in for the night? Let's talk about careers for a moment. Most of us have had a bad day at the office, a day where the coffee is terrible and the emails just won't stop. But it's all a matter of perspective, isn't it? Tonight, we're going to drift back to ancient Egypt, a land we often picture in shimmering gold and towering monuments. We think of powerful pharaohs, learned scribes, and priests draped in mystery. We don't often think about the jobs that made that glittering world possible, especially the ones nobody would put on their resume with pride. If you think your job is tough, well, a bad day at the office 3,000 years ago on the banks of the Nile involved challenges that were a whole lot more visceral. Before we wade into the grime, if you find these little late-night explorations of the past relaxing, do consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. I always find it so wonderful to read the comments and see where you're all listening from, creating this quiet, global community. So find that perfect spot, let your head sink into the pillow, and allow the day to dissolve. Alright, let's gently push aside the veil of time. We're not heading to a palace or a grand temple, not at first. We're heading down to the water's edge, where the real work gets done. To understand some of ancient Egypt's least desirable jobs, we first need to understand one of their deepest cultural values: purity. For the Egyptians, cleanliness wasn't just a matter of hygiene, it was a state of being, a spiritual necessity. The concept was called WB, and it meant to be pure, clean, and unblemished. This state was absolutely essential for anyone who wished to interact with the gods. Priests, who served in the great temples, were held to the highest standard. To be worthy of entering the sacred spaces, they had to shave their entire bodies, wash themselves in consecrated water multiple times a day, and most importantly, be clothed in linen garments that were immaculately, spotlessly white. Linen was considered the only truly pure fabric, as wool, being animal hair, was a taboo material within temple precincts. This obsession with spotless white linen created a relentless demand. Every priest, every day, needed a fresh, pure garment. And linen, then as now, gets dirty. This presented a practical problem that needed a very hands-on solution, giving rise to a profession that was both absolutely essential and deeply unpleasant: the fuller, or the laundry worker. In the famous Egyptian text known as the Satire of the Trades, a father tries to convince his son to become a scribe by describing how awful every other job is. The fuller gets a special mention, and it's not a flattering one. The text speaks of the fuller's misery, spending his days with soiled garments and working in close, unpleasant proximity to his materials. They were the unsung, and often shunned, heroes behind the pristine image of the Egyptian priesthood. The process of washing clothes in ancient Egypt was a far cry from our modern, automated methods. They had no soap as we know it. Instead, they relied on two primary cleaning agents. The first was natron, a naturally occurring salt mixture found in dried lake beds, most famously at the Wadi el Natron. It's a powerful desiccant and mild alkali, great for absorbing oils and dirt. The second ingredient was a bit more personal: human urine. It sounds shocking, but for millennia, people understood that aged urine was a remarkably effective cleaning agent. The ammonia it contains acts as a potent bleach and solvent, cutting through grease and stains. Fullers would collect urine in large clay pots, letting it ferment to increase its potency. The laundry sites were typically set up along the banks of the Nile or a nearby canal. Large, shallow vats, either carved from stone or built from plaster, would be filled with the soiled linen, water, a measure of natron, and a generous splash of that pungent, fermented urine. The fuller would then climb into this foul-smelling concoction and begin to stomp. 4 hours on end, under the searing Egyptian sun, they would tread the laundry with their bare feet, pounding the dirt, grime, and stains out of the fabric. After the lengthy stomping process, the heavy, sodden bundles of cloth would be hauled to the river to be rinsed, a dangerous task in itself, as the Nile was teeming with crocodiles. Finally, the cleansed linen was wrung out, beaten against smooth rocks to remove more water, and then spread over bushes or specially built frames to dry and bleach to a brilliant white in the powerful sunlight. The ancient texts give us a glimpse, a sanitized summary of the toil. But to truly feel it, we have to let go of our modern comforts and step into their sandals. So now, let your breathing slow down, and just be there. The sun is already a fiery disk in the sky, even though the morning is still young. You are standing on the muddy bank of a canal that feeds from the Nile. You are a fuller, and your day's work is laid out before you. The first thing that greets you, the same way it does every single day, is the smell. It's a complex, overwhelming assault on the senses. There's the sharp, stinging bite of ammonia that catches in the back of your throat, rising from the large clay pots that sit baking in the sun. This is mixed with the dry, dusty, mineral scent of the natron, and beneath it all, the damp, slightly sour odor of the piles of soiled linen waiting for you. It's the smell of your livelihood, and it clings to everything, your hands, your loincloth, your very skin. You take a breath, but you learned long ago not to breathe too deeply. You pick up the first bundle of linen. It's heavy, and it comes from the nearby temple of Ptah. These are the daily robes of the priests, stained with traces of incense, sacrificial oils, and the simple sweat of a day spent performing holy rites. You drop the bundle into one of the stone vats, add a scoop of grayish natron powder, and then, holding your breath, you pour in a bucketful of the fermented urine. The splash echoes in the morning quiet. Then, you hitch up your loincloth and step into the vat. The water is tepid, and the fabric under your feet feels slick and slimy. You begin to stomp. Up and down, left foot, right foot. It's a steady, monotonous rhythm your body has known for years. Your weight presses the cleaning agents into the fibers of the cloth. Up and down. Your calves quickly begin to burn. A dull ache settles into your lower back. But you don't stop. The vat next to you is occupied by your neighbor, his face grim, his body moving in the same endless rhythm. There is no conversation, just the sound of splashing and the soft, squelching sound of linen underfoot. The sun climbs higher, beating down on your bare back and shoulders. You feel the sweat trickling down your face and into your eyes. Flies, drawn by the pungent aroma of your work, buzz in a persistent, irritating cloud around your head. In the distance, you see a procession of priests from the temple, their freshly shaven heads gleaming, their bodies draped in the brilliantly white linen that was the result of your labor yesterday. They are walking on the raised path, a safe distance from you and your work. As they draw near, you see them avert their gazes. One of them, a younger priest, subtly raises a small, perfumed cloth to his nose. They see your work, but they do not see you. You are part of the landscape, a necessary but invisible component of their purity. Hours pass. When the linen in one vat is finally sufficiently trampled, you begin the arduous task of pulling it out. The cloth is incredibly heavy with water. Your muscles strain as you haul the dripping mass out and load it into a basket. You carry this heavy basket to the edge of the canal. You wade in up to your knees, the cooler water a brief relief. But you are not here to relax. You keep a wary, constant eye on the surface of the water further out. A ripple could be a fish, or it could be the snout of a crocodile. Everyone in your trade knows a story, a tale of a cousin or a friend who grew careless while rinsing and was gone in a silent, terrifying swirl of water. You work fast, plunging the linen into the current, wringing it, plunging it again, your heart beating a little faster until the task is done. You drag the cleaner, but still heavy, linen back to the drying ground, where you meticulously spread each piece over a thorny bush, its white surface a stark contrast to the green leaves. Your day ends as the sun begins to touch the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Your entire body aches. Your hands are raw, and your feet are tender. The smell of ammonia and damp will follow you home. But as you look back, you see long rows of cloth, slowly turning from gray to a brilliant, clean white in the last of the sun's rays. It is pure. It is ready for the temple. You have done your job. The endless, thankless work of the fuller ensured that the priests of Egypt were pure enough to stand before the statues of their gods. It was a cleanliness for the world of the living. But what of that ultimate journey, the one that every Egyptian, from the pharaoh to the farmer, hoped to make into the afterlife? That passage required a different, far more profound, and infinitely more unsettling kind of purification. It was a process that turned a messy, decaying vessel of flesh into an eternal, imperishable home for the soul. This sacred duty fell to another class of highly skilled, yet socially isolated, professionals, the embalmers. Theirs was perhaps the most iconic, and to our modern noses, the most stomach-turning job in the ancient world. To the ancient Egyptians, mummification was not a morbid fascination with the dead. It was a triumphant affirmation of life. They believed the soul had several parts, most notably the Ka, or life force, and the Ba, the unique personality, often depicted as a human-headed bird. For a person to live forever in the paradise known as the Field of Reeds, their Ka and Ba needed to be able to return to their physical body, the Khat, each night. If the body decayed and became unrecognizable, the soul would be lost, homeless, and doomed to a second, final death. Preserving the body, therefore, was not just a nice idea. It was an absolute necessity, a sacred obligation to ensure one's own eternity. The embalmers were part artisans, part surgeons, and part priests. Their work took place in a special area known as the Wabit, the place of purification. These workshops were often located on the west bank of the Nile, the traditional land of the dead, intentionally set apart from the towns and villages of the living. This separation was for practical reasons. The smell was, by all accounts, overpowering, but it was also for ritual reasons. The embalmers, through their constant contact with the dead, were considered ritually impure, respected for their holy skills but also feared and avoided in daily life. The entire mummification process was a lengthy, 70-day affair, a carefully choreographed sequence of gruesome procedures and holy rites. It began with the removal of the internal organs, which would decay most quickly. The most famous part of this process, described vividly by the Greek historian Herodotus, involved the brain. A long, metal hook would be inserted through the nostrils, pushed through the thin ethmoid bone, and used to whisk the brain into a liquid state so it could be poured out through the nose. The Egyptians didn't consider the brain to be important, viewing the heart as the seat of intelligence and consciousness. Though it's worth noting, some Egyptologists point out that skulls of mummies show this wasn't the only method. Sometimes the brain was simply left in place. Next, a skilled cutter would make a sharp incision on the body's left flank to remove the abdominal organs, the stomach, liver, lungs, and intestines. The heart was almost always left untouched within the body, as it was believed the deceased would need it for the final judgment, where it would be weighed against the feather of truth. The removed organs were not discarded. They were cleaned, dried, and placed into 4 special containers known as canopic jars, each one guarded by one of the 4 sons of the god Horus. With the body now empty, the real work of preservation began. The cavity was washed clean with palm wine and spices, and then the entire body was completely buried in a mountain of natron, the same mineral salt used by the fullers. For around 40 days, the body would lie in the natron, which would draw out every last bit of moisture, killing the bacteria and preventing decay. After this period, what remained was a shrunken, leathery, but perfectly preserved human form. This husk was then cleaned, and the hollowed-out torso was stuffed with linen, sawdust, or other materials to restore a more lifelike shape. The skin was anointed with a complex cocktail of expensive oils and resins to make it supple again. Finally, the last and most intricate stage began, the wrapping. Hundreds of yards of fine linen bandages were painstakingly wound around the body, limb by limb, finger by finger. Protective amulets were tucked into the layers at specific points, and priests would recite spells from the Book of the Dead to grant the deceased safe passage through the underworld. This clinical description tells us the what and the how, but it can't truly convey the atmosphere of the Wabbit. To understand that, you have to breathe its unique, heavy air. So let the world around you fall away once more. You are no longer just a listener. You are an apprentice, perhaps 14 years of age, and this is your second year working in the place of purification. You have arrived for another day of what your father calls sacred, and what your stomach still sometimes calls unsettling work. As you pull back the heavy linen flap that serves as a door to the embalming tent, the smell hits you. It's the first and last thing you notice each day. You've become used to it, but it's always there, a thick presence in the air that has soaked into your loincloth, your hair, and your skin. It's the dry, sharp, chemical bite of natron that catches in your sinuses. It's the sweet, cloying, almost pleasant scent of heated pine resin and myrrh. And beneath it all, mingling with the metallic tang of old blood, is the one unmistakable odor that defines your world, the faint, musty scent of death. The light inside is dim. On long wooden tables, several bodies lie in various stages of the 70-day journey. One is a pale, fresh arrival from the city. Another is a dark, shrunken figure, just recently unearthed from its covering of natron. Your master, a grim-faced man with skilled, steady hands, gestures you toward a table in the corner. An elderly woman lies there, her body covered in a vast pile of granular, grayish natron. She has completed her 40 days. Your task is to help remove the salt. It's dusty work. The natron gets everywhere, forming a fine powder on your arms and making you cough. You and another apprentice carefully sweep and brush the salt away, revealing the desiccated form beneath. Her skin is like old, brown leather, stretched taut over her bones. You work with a quiet reverence. This is not a gruesome object. This is the vessel for a soul that is waiting to be reborn. Later in the day, you are called over to assist your master. He is working on a newly arrived nobleman. He has already made the incision, and now he reaches into the man's torso. Your job is not to touch the organs yourself. You are not yet skilled enough, but to hold the canopic jars steady. Your master chants a low, rhythmic prayer as he carefully removes the liver. He washes it in palm wine and hands it to a senior embalmer, who wraps it in linen strips. Then, it is handed to you. You hold the cool, stone jar, its lid carved into the jackal-headed form of the god Durmutef. You hold it with both hands as the wrapped organ is placed inside. You focus on the carved face of the god, trying not to think too much about what the jar now contains. You are a link in a sacred chain. At midday, you take your break. You sit on the sand a good distance from the Wabbit, eating your simple meal of bread and onions. You watch the other workers in the necropolis, the vast city of the dead. The men who are building the tombs, the artisans painting the hieroglyphs on the walls. They work nearby, but they do not mix with you. They give you a wide berth. You know they respect the importance of your work, but they also fear it. You are a handler of the dead. The aura of the Wabbit, its smells and its association with the end of life, sets you apart from the world of the living. It is a lonely profession. But as the day closes, you find your purpose again. You are helping with the final wrapping of a military commander. A priest reads spells from a papyrus scroll while you and your master wind the long linen bandages around the man's arms and legs. Your master directs you to place a beautiful green scarab amulet directly over the man's heart before you wrap his chest. It is the heart scarab, inscribed with a spell to prevent his heart from speaking against him during his final judgment. As you place the cool stone on the leathery skin, you feel a quiet thrill of purpose. This is not a disgusting job. This is a battle. A battle against decay, against darkness, against oblivion. The stench, the isolation, the gruesome sights, they are all a small price to pay for the duty you perform. You are a guardian of eternity. The work of the embalmer, for all its visceral realities, was wrapped in a cloak of profound religious importance. They toiled for eternity, and in that there was a certain dignity. But for most of ancient Egypt's working class, there was no such sacred purpose to sweeten the bitterness of their daily labor. Theirs was the filth of creation, the inescapable grime required to produce the essential goods for mortal life. These were the jobs that kept society functioning, yet pushed those who performed them to the very fringes. And few occupations were as fundamentally, aromatically unpleasant as that of the tanner. Leather was a vital commodity in ancient Egypt. While the wealthy might wear sandals of intricately woven papyrus, the common footwear for everyone else was made of sturdy leather. It was used for the thick shields and armor of soldiers, the complex harnesses of the pharaoh's war chariots, the belts and straps that held tools, and the buckets used to draw water from the Nile. It was a material of strength and utility, but the process of transforming a raw animal hide into this useful material was anything but noble. It was a multi-stage assault on the senses, particularly the sense of smell. A tanner's workshop was, by law and by common decency, located at the extreme edge of any settlement, always downwind. The process began with raw hides, delivered stiff and caked with dried blood and fat from the butchers. The first task was fleshing, scraping away every last bit of flesh and fat with sharp tools, a greasy, messy job that attracted swarms of flies. Next came the dehairing and softening. To achieve this, the hides were submerged in large vats containing a foul-soaking liquor. This nauseating soup was often a mixture of water and animal dung, whose enzymes helped to break down the hair follicles and soften the hide. The hides would soak in this putrid bath for days, the stench of decay and ammonia blanketing the entire area. The smell was considered so offensive that, according to some ancient texts, a woman had legal grounds to divorce her husband if he chose to become a tanner after they were married, without her prior agreement. After being removed from the soaking baths, the hides were stretched and scraped again to remove the loosened hair. Only then could the actual tanning begin, treating the leather with agents like alum or oils from the acacia tree to make it durable and supple. It was a physically demanding, smelly, and deeply isolating trade. Much like the tanner, the fisherman was another essential worker whose profession was a source of both sustenance for the community and scorn from the educated elite. In the satire of the trades, the scribe scoffs at the fisherman's life, describing it as more miserable than any other profession. He speaks of the fisherman's perilous work on the river, exposed to the elements, and in constant danger from crocodiles and hippos that could easily overturn his flimsy papyrus skiff. The fisherman, the text laments, is so mixed up with his catch that he stinks of the very fish he sells, a smell that clings to him and his family, marking them out just as surely as the tanner's stench marked him. The words of a long-dead scribe give us a hint of this societal disdain. But to truly understand a life defined by such substances, to feel the weight of that work in your own bones, we have to step into that world. Let your mind drift past the pyramids and temples, to the dusty outskirts of a small village near Thebes. The sun has not yet risen, but you are already awake. You don't need the first rays of light to tell you it's morning. The smell tells you. You are the son of a tanner, and this is the only life you have ever known. The air in your small, one-room mud-brick house is thick with the permanent, sour stench of your family's trade. It's a complex perfume of rot, of chemicals, of damp animal skin. To others, it is a repulsive odor to be avoided at all costs. To you, it is simply the smell of home, the smell of your father's hands, the smell of the bread it buys you at the market. You rise from your reed mat and follow your father out into the cool, pre-dawn air. The workshop is just a few steps away. He points to a fresh pile of goat hides that a farmer delivered late yesterday. They are stiff with dried blood, and a cloud of flies already buzzes over them in the gloom. Your first job is to get them into the soaking vats. You drag a hide by its leg. It's heavy and awkward. You pull it over to the sunken clay vats at the back of the yard. You and your father lift the heavy, waterlogged wooden lid from one of the vats. A wave of odor erupts from it, a tangible force that makes your eyes water, even after years of this. It is the deep, pungent reek of the dung and water liquor, fermenting for weeks. There is no poetry in it. It is the smell of decay harnessed for a purpose. Holding your breath, you shove the stiff, unwieldy hide into the cold, slimy liquid. You use a long, heavy pull to push it down, forcing the air out of it, until it is fully submerged in the foul soup, joining the other hides already beginning their slow transformation. Later in the day, the sun is high and unforgiving. Your father calls you over to a different part of the workshop. It's time to dehair the hides that have been soaking for a week. You pull one out of its vat. It's heavy, dripping, and unbelievably slimy. You drape it over a large, smooth, rounded log that serves as your work surface. With a curved, dull-edged bronze scraper, you begin the back-breaking task of pushing the loosened hair and epidermis off the hide. It comes away in thick, putrid clumps, which fall to the dirt floor around your feet. Your arms ache from the repetitive motion, your back screams in protest, but you work with a steady rhythm. Scrape, push, turn. Scrape, push, turn. You lose track of time, focusing only on the patch of skin in front of you, on revealing the clean, pale hide beneath the filth. As evening approaches, when your body feels heavy with exhaustion, your father comes to you. He is holding a finished piece of leather. He has spent the afternoon working on it, treating it with acacia oils and rubbing it until it is perfect. He hands it to you. It is supple, strong, and dyed a rich, deep red. You run your hand over its smooth surface. It smells clean, earthy, a true leathery smell that holds no memory of the vile process that gave it life. This, your father says, his voice raspy with fatigue, is for the soul of a new pair of sandals for the overseer of the temple granary. You hold the beautiful, strong piece of leather in your hands, hands that are raw and stained from your own filthy work. And in that moment, you feel a small, quiet flicker of pride. You take decay, rot, and filth, and through your hard, smelly, endless labor, you create something useful, something durable, something that will walk on the clean stone floors of a temple you will never enter. It's a strange kind of magic. It is a small consolation, but on most days, it is just enough to get you through. The tanner's life was one of physical isolation, pushed to the edge of town by the overwhelming smell of his trade. He was kept at a distance because his work was offensive to the nose. But there were other professions in ancient Egypt whose practitioners were ostracized not just for the filth they handled, but for the very idea they represented. Their daily work might not have involved the same level of hands-on grime as the fuller or the tanner, but it placed them at the absolute bottom of the social and religious ladder, making them untouchable in a way that was arguably even more profound. This was the lonely, hereditary world of the pig herder. In the intricate tapestry of Egyptian belief, the pig occupied a strange and unenviable position. Unlike the noble cow, associated with the goddess Hathor, or the sacred cat of Batet, the pig was an animal linked with chaos and impurity. Its primary negative association was with the god Set, the great antagonist in the Osiris myth. Set was the embodiment of disorder, the violent usurper who murdered his own brother, Osiris, the king of the gods. In one part of the myth, Set transforms himself into a great black pig and viciously attacks Osiris's son, the falcon god Horus, injuring his eye. This act forever tainted the pig in the Egyptian imagination, linking it to one of the most heinous crimes in their mythology. It became an animal of Set, and therefore, ritually unclean. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, was fascinated by this particular Egyptian taboo. He wrote that Egyptians considered the pig to be an unclean animal, and if any Egyptian so much as accidentally brushed against one in passing, they would immediately run to the Nile and plunge into the river, clothes and all, to cleanse themselves of the contamination. This deep-seated revulsion naturally extended to the people who spent their lives tending to these creatures. According to Herodotus, pig herders were the only people in Egypt who were expressly forbidden from entering any temple. Their very presence was considered a profanation of sacred ground. This religious exclusion led to complete social ostracism. No respectable Egyptian family would allow their son to marry a pig herder's daughter, nor would they allow their daughter to marry a pig herder. They were a closed caste, forced to marry only among themselves, passing their despised profession and their untouchable status down from generation to generation. And yet, here lies a strange paradox. Despite this official religious disdain, archaeological evidence from workers' villages, like the one that housed the builders of the Giza pyramids, shows that pork was a regular part of the diet for common laborers. The pig was an efficient source of meat, easy to raise and able to subsist on scraps. So while the elite and the priesthood shunned the animal, it was still a vital part of the economy that fed the masses. The pig herder was therefore trapped in a bizarre limbo, essential for the sustenance of the working class, but utterly despised by the religious and social ideals of the very civilization he helped to feed. The historical accounts paint a stark picture of a life lived on the absolute margins of society. But to feel the daily sting of that exclusion, to understand that profound loneliness, we must walk for a moment in their dusty, worn-out sandals. So, for the last time, let the world around you dissolve. Let us leave the workshops and the embalming tents behind. The sun is a great, weeping orange as it sinks towards the western desert. The air is cooling. You are a pig herder, and you are guiding your small, noisy herd along the dusty track that leads back to the village. The work itself is simple, almost peaceful in its own way. You've spent the day on the scrubby land at the edge of the cultivated fields, letting your animals forage for roots and insects. They are intelligent, stubborn creatures, and you know each one by its particular grunt or squeal. The air around you is thick with their sounds and their distinct, earthy, animal smell. After a lifetime, you barely notice it anymore. It is simply the smell of your world. What you do notice, what never quite loses its sharp edge, is the way other people look at you. Or rather, the way they look away. As you approach the edge of the village, a group of women carrying water pots from the canal see you coming. The conversation among them stops. One of them subtly pulls her young child behind her skirt. They all lower their gaze and turn their faces away as you pass, their expressions a carefully blank mask that you know conceals a deep-seated disgust. You don't meet their eyes either. You've learned that from your father. Keep your gaze on your pigs, or on the dusty ground just ahead. Make yourself small. Make yourself invisible. It's easier that way. In the distance, the grand stone pylon gate of the local temple, dedicated to the town's patron god, glows warmly in the last light of day. Its walls are covered in beautiful, intricate carvings of the pharaoh making offerings and smiting Egypt's enemies. It is the heart of your community's spiritual life. It is a place of festivals, of music, of prayer. and it is a place you will never, ever enter. You know that if you even tried to approach the outer courtyard, the temple guards would rush out and drive you away with harsh words and heavy sticks. Your very presence, your shadow, would defile the sacred ground. You are unclean. You think of your father, also a pig herder, and his father before him, and his father before him. You know that soon, your parents will arrange a marriage for you with a girl from another pig-herding family, maybe from the next village over. Your children, when they come, will learn to follow the pigs, just as you did. This is your destiny. It is not written in the stars or decreed by a great god in a golden shrine. It is written in the mud that cakes your feet, and in the nature of the animal that trots along in front of you. There is a strange, hollow freedom in this certainty. No one expects anything more from you, but it is the freedom of an invisible cage. You guide the last of your pigs into its simple wooden pen for the night. The day is done. And for us, our journey is done as well. The story of these lives, lived in the shadows of a great civilization, now comes to a quiet close. The memory of the fuller, stomping endlessly in his foul-smelling vat, the embalmer, with his sacred tools and the stench of eternity on his hands, the tanner, creating beauty from decay in his lonely workshop, and the pig herder, walking with his unclean animals, forever outside the temple gate. Let these figures now begin to fade. Let the heat of the Egyptian sun cool on your skin. Let the sharp smell of ammonia and natron, of resin and rot, all dissolve into the gentle night air. The sounds of the ancient world, the grunting of pigs, the splashing of water, the low chant of a priest, all grow faint, receding into the great, silent desert of time. The toil of these forgotten people was the unseen foundation upon which a golden civilization was built. Their hardship was the price of someone else's purity, someone else's comfort, someone else's eternity. And now, their long day is over. Let their stories rest. And let you too now rest. Let go of it all, and drift peacefully into the quiet darkness. Into sleep. Good night.